When you said very orange, or what is it all the kids are saying? Very demure,
Demure,
very mindful.
yes.
What was the other thing? I forget.
I don't know the slang
I get
anymore.
mocked for
I'm
knowing the slang.
I'm too
But
old.
when you said it, it reminded me of
I'm
it.
so sorry.
Anyway. Hello and welcome to WTF, where we help you transform food in your kitchen. I'm Janie.
And I'm Roman.
And on this channel, we talk about unique ingredients, techniques, and show you new recipes for your kitchen. And this week, we are sharing a new fall recipe, because it's fall, we love fall. Yes. I don't know if we said it enough, but we absolutely love it. And today we are sharing a recipe for how do you make a squash gnocchi that has no flour in it. So this is for you gluten-free people, but honestly, we love it. We're not gluten-free,
nope.
But it's absolutely delicious. It happens to be gluten-free. It happens to be low-carb. It happens to be kind of, sort of keto, depending on who you're asking.
Right.
So if you're keto, do your own research if this is right for you. But we're just here for the taste.
Yes.
So, Roman, I'm gonna just hand it over to you to make the squash gnocchi. I know it's kind of pretty straightforward. We're gonna go single shot here.
Yep.
I see here that you have some roasted butternut squash.
Right.
Right, which makes sense. But I'm wondering, why is it roasted cut side down?
All right, that's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is, I roast these cut side down because I'm trying to trap all the flavor in there, and I don't want to discolor the butternut squash. Normally, when you make butternut squash, you cut it in half and you lay it up, skin side up, down, flesh side up, and you roast it that way, which is very easy and very good. But what happens is roasting it really darkens the flesh of it.
Yeah.
And we're trying to make a really nice bright gnocchi here, and so I turn it upside down. That way it'll trap it, as I can show you. It doesn't really brown the flesh of it very much. It keeps it nice and bright, very orange. So when we make our gnocchis, you're gonna see how they come out. They're gonna be super bright. They're gonna look great. All right, so after we roast the butternut squash, we scoop off the flesh and then we put it into a food processor and we make a puree out of it. We don't add anything to it, and then we come up with this right here, which is the butternut squash puree. And as you can see, like I said earlier, it's very orange. There's no black bits in it at all. So this is gonna be a really nice color when we do make the gnocchis.
Okay, and what's next?
All right, so let's remove this. We'll just get this out the way. And I have our blender right here. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna scoop in our butternut squash right into the blender, okay? And then over here I have a mixture of water and calcium hydroxide. So I'm just gonna get that in together.
And calcium hydroxide is a base. It's gonna make the water really alkaline for our, we're gonna show you why we are doing that.
All right, I have my handy dandy frother here, and I'm just gonna use that to mix that up. I'm gonna turn this on to a low speed, and I'm gonna pour in the calcium hydroxide water mixture. You wanna make sure that you are incorporating this into the butternut squash. So we'll let that go for about 30 seconds.
Oh yeah, you have no lid on it. It's freaking
Oh,
me
very
out.
dangerous. Let's turn that off and let's find the lid.
I was like,
All right,
happening next?
let's turn that back on. And we're just gonna make sure that that water calcium hydroxide mixture is completely thoroughly mixed into the butternut squash. So once you're sure of that, you can go ahead and turn that off. And you want to scrape the butternut squash into this bowl here that we have here. We have our butternut squash flour, we have our cognac, and we have our salt. So we're just gonna dry mix those in together.
All right, so cognac is a root gum. The cognac, if you haven't used it before, is like super, super duper gelling strength. And cognac, but doesn't gel unless it's in a really base liquid, which is why there's calcium hydroxide in here.
All right, so that's nicely mixed. Then we're just gonna pour that right into our butternut squash mix, and we're just gonna mix that up.
Okay. So as Roman's mixing, one of the things you might be noticing is that he has this beautiful bright orange butternut squash flour. Do you want to talk about how you made it?
Yes, so the butternut squash flour that we made was roasted just like the butternut squash I showed you earlier, and then we dehydrate it, and then we process it in a blender until it's very fine, and then pass that through a fine mesh strainer.
Yeah. So we were kind of talking internally about this, and we're like, well, what if people don't have a dehydrator? How do you still make this recipe accessible? So we did find that you can go out to the store and you can buy butternut squash, I think probably on Amazon or something. And what we noticed was different is that, so this right here is the store-bought butternut squash. If you can see it, it's kind of like a duller color.
Yep.
And then over here we have, Roman's homemade fresh butternut squash. And you can see like what an amazing difference there is between the two.
Big time.
And not just in color, like when I take a bowl of this, I can smell the butternut squash. This, not so much.
Right.
So this recipe will work with store-bought butternut squash flour, but just the homemade one is just like so much better. So if you do happen to have a dehydrator and you want to make it, it's not much more work. But if you don't, this is another option. It's still going to taste delicious, but like we said, sometimes this is good, but this is going to be a lot better. Okay.
All right. So this could be get a little bit sticky here. So we're just going to work with this a little bit. I have a little bit of butternut squash flour. We're just going to put it on there, and a little bit on top. And just like you would with a regular gnocchi recipe, we're just going to roll that out right into a log.
So Roman, and I'm sure somebody out there is wondering, why are we even using butternut flour? Why are we just using like almond flour or rice flour or something else?
Well, initially when I was coming up testing this recipe, I did use a variety of different flours for this, Lupin being one of them. But what had happened was the different flours took away the butternut squash flavor. And what I was trying to do, being that that's full, I was trying to keep that wonderful butternut squash flavor. And so the only alternative is to use, what else? Butternut squash to bulk it up.
Ooh.
All right.
So right now I feel like the only real ingredient in here is butternut squash.
Exactly, and that's
right?
what makes this so good. It's so delicious because what you're getting is butternut squash flavor. So I'm gonna roll this all up, and then we're just gonna let it sit for a couple of minutes. We let it sit for about 5 to 6 minutes because that's gonna let the cognac and the calcium hydroxide do its thing and hold everything together.
Okay. So because not everyone's going to eat all this right off the bat, can they freeze it? Can they store it? Can they save it for later?
Exactly. You can freeze it, what I usually do when I'm not eating it all at once is I will cool this down in an ice bath, and I'll just cool it down for about 10 minutes because you don't want to leave it there too long because it will start, like regular gnocchi, it will start to break down. So you, right out of the boiling water into an ice bath, you let it sit for about 10 minutes, stirring it every now and then. Take it out and then put it into a container with a little bit of olive oil so it doesn't stick. And you can freeze it for up to 2 to 3 months, or it'll stay nice in the fridge for 5 to 7 days.
Okay, great tips. We'll be right back. All right, well, it's been 5 minutes and we are ready to cut our squash gnocchi. But before we do, I want to talk a little bit about this week's ingredient highlight, which is going to be this Konjac Gum and calcium hydroxide combo. So Konjac Gum, as I mentioned before, it's a highly viscous, really strong gelling gum, but only in the process of a base liquid, which is what calcium hydroxide does. It just takes whatever liquid and makes it super basic. So the combination of these both are really great. We use them a lot in plant-based recipes, gluten-free recipes, keto recipes, because they have that power to hold everything together, which is often missing when you take away different types of animal products, gluten, period.
Yeah.
So we really love this. So you can get this ingredient on our website, modernistpantry.com. Link in the description below. We're going to have all the recipes in it. I think most famously, the shirataki noodles, but then also things like our keto empanadas. We have the plant-based clam chowder.
Right.
We have keto tortillas. So now we have squash gnocchi. So check out all the recipes in the links in the description below. Now back to Roman.
All right, so we're ready to go. Our gnocchi ropes have stiffened up quite a bit over the 5-7 minutes, and so we're ready to cut them, and we're gonna put them in some water that is boiling. So we'll just cut these. Now these are like beautiful, as you can see. They just that. One of the things about making gnocchi without flour is, like you said, there's no gluten, so there's nothing to hold it together, really. The cognac is just incredible at doing that.
One of the things we were talking about off camera that Roman was just mentioning is, so when we're talking about this, he's like, oh, I've tried it so many times at the restaurant, I can never get it right. And I was like, well, you know, we can certainly tweak that here.
Yes,
So-
big time failures, big time failures. But this is coming out great.
Like, I'm just gonna grab one, and you can kind of feel the texture is like really, really firm, kind of like what you would expect from a potato gnocchi.
Yep.
And it's actually hard to believe that there's no added starch in here.
All right,
Yeah.
so we're gonna, oh,
It's almost
I
got
happen
like,
to have a fork here. I usually like to do the little fork things for gnocchi.
yeah, getting fancy.
Yeah, all right, we'll just do just a couple of them.
Okay.
All right, and we're just gonna put them right into our boiling water. And just like gnocchi, you'll know when these are done when they start rising to the surface of the water. All right, so our gnocchis are out of the boiling water and we're ready to plate them and try them out.
Look how bright that is.
That's
Is
beautiful
gorgeous.
color. All right, and over here I have a butternut squash foam that we're just gonna put a little bit.
Brown butter?
Brown butter foam, excuse me.
It's like, that's a lot of butternut squash. And the butternut squash gnocchi with a butternut foam. Top with butter.
Might be a little bit too much. All right. And I'm gonna
Oh,
throw
that
a
looks
little,
so good.
a little bit of extra here, just for a little bit of crunch here,
Yeah.
and it should be nice.
This looks incredible.
That is nice.
All right, taste time.
All right, let's do it.
I'm gonna get a
You first.
squash. I'm gonna get some of this foam, of course. It's so good.
Wow. Right? The sweetness of the butternut is very subtle, but you get it on the back end. But it just tastes like butternut. There's nothing else to compete with the flavor of butternut.
Yeah.
You have a little bit of the brown butter that helps accentuate it, but this is and the texture of it is just like gnocchi that just came out of boiling water. It's
Yeah.
incredible. I love it.
This is gonna be part of our healthy eating series because this is so healthy right now. It is. There's nothing added.
Nope.
It's the flavor is incredible. It really is, and like you said, like it's pretty easy to make. You watch Roman do most
It's
of
super,
it on camera.
super easy.
This is so good.
A little bit with the pecan.
Yeah, I think if you serve this in your restaurant, in your home, it doesn't matter where, people are gonna love it. They're gonna be like, wow, there's nothing else in here but butternut squash. That's amazing. So get this recipe in the links in the description below and let us know what you think about it. And until next week, from here in the Modernist Pantry Test Kitchen, I'm Janie,
And I'm Roman.
and we transform
Food.